I'm Scott Stein, and I'm listening to the new iPod Touch, which is now available today. This was announced back at the iPhone 5 event a few weeks ago, and has not been available until now. It is a new 5th generation iPod Touch model alongside an iPod Nano that also came out. And this brings to the table a lot of new designs. It's really kind of a top-to-bottom reinvention of the iPod Touch in the same way that the iPhone 5 was, but to a different end. This is a lot thinner and a lot lighter, believe it or not, than the iPhone 5, but it also obviously is not a phone and doesn't require a contract, but also has slightly different set of specs under the hood. I'll go into that in a second. Now what's the same here is a 4-inch Retina display. This is down to the pixel, the same IPS Retina display that you're going to get on the iPhone 5. And that gives us a very iPhone 5y feel. If you walk into an Apple store, you're going to see a lot that feels similar. But the shape, the design of this iPod is very different. It's thinner, it's got, hey, this crazy wrist loop which attaches to the back. Apple says is good for using it as a camera. I also say it's good if you're using it with kids. And it also has a variety of candy colors, though you can't tell that here. This comes in black, which is the model I have, plus all the others have white faces, and there are ones with blue backs, yellow backs, there's a red back, and that's new for the iPod Touch. That matches what you see in the iPod Nanos and kind of returns to the Apple candy-colored theme that we see arise once in a while. And I think it's going to create a little more of an appeal about this. It's also going to stand out more in the store next to the iPhone. Now, what did I mean by different? Well, this uses an A5 processor, not an A6. That matches what you'd find in the iPhone 4S and also the 2nd generation iPad. It's a dual-core processor. Now, it works with Siri, which is built into this finally, and all the iOS 6 apps work here. You can get Apple Maps with Flyover, and everything runs really smoothly. But it may have a slight impact in terms of the way that games look. But that Retina display is going to be a killer app for video quality. The fact that you can look at it in 16:9 and be able to look at videos with less letterboxing and also play games that are potentially iPhone 5 compatible and be able to take advantage of all that stuff on the App Store, that's going to be a big appeal here. Another change is the camera. Now, there has been a 2-year gap since the last iPod Touch. Last year's was really an iteration of the same product that had been around in 2010. That had an A4 processor, and the camera back then took almost VGA quality pictures and 720p video. This is 1080p video, and it shoots it with image stabilization, which is a lot like what you'd find in the iPhone 5. But the camera is 5 megapixels, so it's not 8 megapixels, but it does have a lens construction like the iPhone 5. So it's really kind of a hybrid. And it has panorama, which is that new camera feature, and all the other iOS 6 features. It has HDR, has a backlit sensor, and so far the pictures look really sharp on it. It's definitely by far the best camera that you've ever seen on an iPod Touch, and Apple clearly is indicating that with that wrist strap. They're intending that this really becomes a replacement camera for you. That extends to the front because you also have an HD camera, which is like the iPhone 5, so it can take 1.2 megapixel snaps. You can also get 720p front-facing video. That's really great. Now, of course, it's also a music player. We won't get into that because you know about that, although the capacities here are 32 gigs and 64 gigs. And the prices are a little bit high, $299 and $399. There is no budget level one, and that's because now the 4th generation iPod Touch, the older one, that's in at $199, and you can get a 16 gig or a 32 gig of that. So if you're pricing this out, you may want to get that budget 4th gen, but if you're buying this, it's got to start at $299. What you're getting here is a very light, I've used the iPhone for a couple of weeks now, and this is really light, really thin. When we looked at the last iPod Touch, we already marveled about all the features that are on this. It really is a device that is a multi-use device. You're talking about using this for games, for FaceTime, for camera use, and of course you can connect this and use it the same way you would use an iPhone, to check email, to browse the web, to use a wide variety of apps. The only thing you can't do with this is get GPS or use it for cellular use outside of a Wi-Fi hotspot, and that really makes this a little pocket computer and pushes it well beyond maybe the definitions of what an iPod was, or maybe this was the definition of an iPod in the first place. Maybe that's why it's not called a music player. It's meant to be something multi-purpose, and this new iPod Touch is absolutely the best iPod that's been around, and it's a pretty cool device even outside of that. So there you have it. I'm Scott Stein, and that's a look at the new 5th generation iPod Touch from Apple.